Hey everybody, I just wanted to, honestly come and open up conversation about multiple sclerosis and my journey. So I am no doctor, I am no healthcare professional, but I want to share with you my journey from when I was first diagnosed on November 22nd, 2022. So it's been a journey. Honestly, I have been sitting here humming and hawing about when is the right time to come in and start my vlogs and open up the conversation. I wanted to wait till I was better so I can talk about my experience, but honestly, this is just me in the raw. Let's just start off. So my symptoms started in September. As many of you know, I have been doing lots of transformations in my lifestyle, changing over to, really focusing on homesteading and gardening and really focusing on growing all of our vegetables and fruits from scratch from our own garden. So I've been really definitely on that journey normally, or this past year especially. So in September, many of you would have saw, all my garden pictures and canning and meal prepping for our family. So our boys had moved to the city, and then coincidentally, and I don't say by coincidence, and I'll tell you why later on, they moved back home. They were living in the city. They moved back home after a couple of years. And again, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to need to start prepping for the winter time as far as our foods and, filling our freezers and pantries full of food to help obviously eliminate the costs of feeding a family of 7 at home. So obviously I've done that already, but noticing that foods have gone through the roof, it was, it's kind of like my grandma's and my mom's way of living. This is what they did. They meal prepped and they canned and, preserving foods that we grew on our own. So that's where this all comes from. I'm not taking this brand new way of living. I'm doing what my grandparents did. So in September, this is kind of the thing that I was doing. And my very first symptom so again, keeping this in mind, I probably have dealt with many symptoms of MS along the way, but I just used an excuse and it was something else. Or I was like, oh, it must be this. I must be tired. I must be feeling this because of this. So I've made many excuses along the way. But one big symptom I did notice that is something related to MS, or many other MS people with MS have felt, is tingling and numbness and electrical sensations in their hands and feet. So I had been avid into canning in September, and I was moving jars around. I don't know if many of you are familiar with water bath method of canning. I went to move a bunch of jars with one hand, not both. So for some reason in my mind, I was like, oh, I must have burnt my fingertips from, grabbing a jar that just came from a water bath too quickly. So if you're a canner, you understand this. You're just like, forget it. Just move the can or move the jar. Where's your gloves? Hello. So what I thought I did was I burnt my fingertips. Well, keep it in mind, all out of nowhere, all 10 of my fingertips on both hands were numb. So by that, I mean, so the feeling of when you first burn yourself on your skin, that feeling of the numbness and tingling and almost an electrical current feeling on your skin. So this started happening, I don't know the day, in September. And again, I associated it with, lots of canning, must have burnt it from here. And then slowly throughout the weeks, the numbing sensation and tingling and electrical feelings went from my fingertips into my hands. And then at times, depending on movements or depending on what I was doing, went into my arms as well. And then I started noticing that while my working out was when I was working out during classes, during this time, I had taken time off virtuals because I was like, you know what, it's too busy. I'm homeschooling the kids. I'm homesteading. I'm meal prepping. I got too much going on for September. So I pushed my in-person classes to October because I was just feeling tired. but keeping in mind, I was doing a lot at home too with the animals and homesteading and the kids. And, for me, it's just, this is my life. I am busy on a daily basis and I don't know anything different. So unless something slows me down, I just honestly don't know anything different. So let's fast forward to October, where I started being a lot more tired. But again, for those that know my history of iron deficiency, I do get iron infusions every 4 to 6 months. So I was summing it up to thinking that I was just tired. Oh, because I need to get another infusion. It's coming up to that time again, but we're talking extreme fatigue. Like we're talking like I would sleep an 8 to 10 hour night and still wake up completely exhausted. So this was a little bit past the point of what I was dealing with my iron deficiency and the fatigue I get from that. So into October, I was like, no, I have to make an income. I have to put food on the table. Let's just run classes. Let's take a break from the virtuals right now, because that means I'm actually physically working out. So I, in my mind, was like, no, let's just listen to yourself. You give advice to people on, taking rest when you need. And then I was dealing with all this fatigue. And in October, along with the numbness and tingling in my hands and feet and some of the other weird areas of my body, I started getting what is called the MS girdle or MS band. Okay. So this is where I secretly knew that I had MS, or that this could be a very real diagnosis for me. Because, yes, I had been Googling my symptoms, because we all do it. I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't. But I mean, a lot of these very real symptoms started happening to me. And again, I was quiet. My husband knew. My mom knew. Sorry, Mom. She kept telling me to go to the doctor, but we all know that in our healthcare system that you go to the doctor for numbness and tingling and all these minor symptoms. What are they going to do? They're going to send you to a chiropractor, to a physiotherapist. They're going to send you or refer you to a specialist, and that referral is going to take months. So in my mind, I don't have time for that kind of stuff. Okay. I know this is like, I'm telling you, this is my reality. This is the way I am. And I think I'm like most people and like most women. We are too busy to be diagnosed with something. And honestly, that was me. I was too busy to go to the doctor. I was too busy to deal with my health because I have other stuff to do. I'm homesteading. I'm doing all these busy things. So I'm trying to give you guys a real sense of reality. And, and please don't follow what I was doing, but I'm trying to say this is who I am, and this is just my personality, where it's just like, oh no, I got too much other things going on. So with this MS band, the only way that I can describe it is like an MS girdle. I think I understand why they say girdle, is because for women, if you have ever fit or put a girdle on, and the tight feeling that it takes. So the girdle, so just imagine putting your sports bra on, or a bra, and feeling like it's so tight and so uncomfortable that you almost would be to the point where you're short of breath because it hurts 24/7. So this is a feeling of no clothing on. So I'm just using that reference. Like, say sports bras are usually tighter than a regular bra, but that feeling of, it was a band that went under my chest and tightened and tightened and tightened so badly that feeling went down to my lower abdomen area and into the obliques as well. So I felt numb and tingling and pressure and complete numbness. Like it was so interesting to feel and describe. And that numbness actually went into my growing area. And then I've had bladder incontinence and bladder issues. So and this is interesting because this is why I know that I've had MS for a while, is because I've been dealing with bladder incontinence for a very long time. Again, summing it up to, I had kids. This is what happens when we have kids. If you don't, strengthen your pelvic floor, this is just a reality. Again, summing it up or giving the excuse to something else and not realizing that it actually could have stemmed, or this is what I was dealing with along the way. So during classes, during workouts, I've given these excuses. Oh, well, it's just because I've had kids. Oh, hey, mamas out there, this is no jumping. I can't jump because, This is what happens when I jump during workouts, So summing up these issues when really it could actually have been this MS all along. And the reason why I say that is because when I got to the hospital, the neurologist asked me, based on the results of my MRI, said, have you felt symptoms before? And I said, well, I don't know, because I say I could deal with these symptoms since September. I was dealing with these since September, but these bladder issues and all other issues along the way, well, hey, that could have been it too, because on my MRI, it actually showed that I had active and inactive lesions in my brain. There was well over 40 lesions in my brain and along my spine that are active. So the ones that are inactive means that I have dealt with the inflammation, the damage is there, they created these lesions, and this totally makes sense now, because there's so many other symptoms I've had that are all starting to connect and come together. And I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was this. Again, I'm not a doctor, but unfortunately, with our healthcare system in Canada, I have no other choice but to explore and, come up with my own conclusions at this point, because nobody else is supporting me or helping me along the way. Besides an MRI and besides a hospital visit, this is all I have. Telling me I have, lesions, in an MRI, this is my thing, says you have active lesions, and lesions that are between 1 and 2 centimeters large, which is pretty big when you think about how small your brain is, and flares in different areas. So again, on November the 21st, I finally went to the optometrist, because my mother is a nurse and registered, and a very, very smart woman who kept bugging me. But it was not until, so let's fast forward. So September had the numbness and tingling in September. Into October, I had the MS girdle and the extreme sensation of numbness and tingling and pain in my abdomen area. There was one stint before I go on to the hospital visit in November, early November, I think. It was a nice day. My husband and I, we raise goats on our farm, and we trim their hooves about 2 to 3 times a year. And him and I went out to do the biannual or quarterly trimming of their goat hooves and giving them their ivermectin and so on. So I usually am the one that straddles them on the ground when they lay on their side and hold them down while Joe trims their hooves. And it usually is about a couple hour stint that it takes us to do all of them. We have 15 goats, so it takes a while. And I noticed that my lower body, so from my waist down, was getting numb and tingling, but extreme numbness. So to the point that when we took a break, I literally couldn't get off the ground. And I didn't think anything of it, because a couple days prior to that, I had done a couple heavy workouts for leg workouts at our boot camp class. And I was like, oh, just must have been a heavy leg day. My legs must be cramping up. So again, making those excuses, because again, this is just what I've done. And I literally couldn't get off the ground. So my husband had to pull me up, and I physically could not support myself, my body, on my own 2 legs. So he let me back down. I sat down, and he had to support me and walk me back to the house. So for about 2 days, I noticed that it was really bad, where all of a sudden my legs felt very heavy and I was tripping on my own 2 feet. So that actually has been happening since September and into October, November, because again, I noticed my mobility and my stability, my balance and coordination issues were getting really bad, which was really scary. But again, thinking, okay, well, just got to sum it up, got to get back into shape. Clearly I haven't been focusing on my own fitness journey, got to get back into shape. That's kind of what I've been, in my head. So as a fitness instructor, when our fitness abilities and fitness journey, when all of a sudden you start noticing that you can't do things, this is something that we do, is like, oh, I just got to, get back into it. I just got to, focus on really making an effort to, let's get back into shape. Let's do this. Right. So I had been doing that. So those are some other symptoms I had dealt with in throughout the months, that I noticed that I would just sum it up to, oh, well, I really haven't been focusing on my fitness journey and really haven't been putting effort into my workout. So, okay, got to get back into it. So let's fast forward to 2 weeks prior to me finally making an appointment with the optometrist. I went to the regular local optometrist in Stonewall here, close to us, and I was dealing with 2 weeks prior to that. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had an extreme, awful, excruciating migraine. I had a migraine 2 weeks prior to Grey Cup Sunday. So I remember the date for this. And it was all weekend. I was like, okay, maybe I should go to the massage therapist. My neck must be bothering me. But this was a different kind of migraine. It was actually a pain in and behind on the left side, about kind of set behind my left eye. So now I know why. Further on, a couple days after that migraine stopped, there was a blur spot in my left eye. And I thought, okay, that's odd. So I asked my husband, like, is there anything in my eye? Can you see anything? And couldn't see nothing. And progressively over that next week and a half, that blurry spot turned into the entire left eye going 75% blurry. So blurry, loss of vision, and loss of color. So scary as heck. So again, come Grey Cup Sunday, we went to my mom and dad's house, and from that Friday to the Sunday of Grey Cup, my eye progressively got really bad. So my husband drove home that night on Sunday. I made an appointment Monday morning. Oh no, it was Tuesday. I could get into the optometrist, and went to the optometrist, and she said, Kate, I think this is what I think it is. It's optic neuritis, which means that there is pressure or inflammation on the optic nerve behind the eye, which would explain the pain and excruciating pain and fatigue I was feeling in this side, in my eye, in my vision. And I was at the clinic, and she said, what are you doing right now? And I was like, well, I just had a massage, so it was going to treat my neck, right? Thinking that I'm having a migraine. And she's like, I said, oh, I'm going home. I had a massage. I'm here and I want to go home because it's been a long day and I'm tired. And she's like, I actually need I'm giving you a referral to a specialist surgeon, an eye surgeon on Taylor Avenue in the city, and I need you to go to him immediately. And I was like, okay, like, this sounds kind of serious. Like, I think she was trying not to make me panic. So I called the kids and said, the boys were watching the younger ones. And I was like, look, guys, mom has to go to see another doctor at the city about my eye. And then I drove to, keeping in mind I had one eye. So for those that are worried that I was driving with a blurred vision, I mean, people drive with one eye all the time. So in my defense, I felt safe enough to drive. Okay. It was during the day. It was okay. So I drove to the city and I went to the specialist, and super amazing guy. I have to give him a shout out because I don't remember his name. He's a surgeon specialist on Taylor Avenue, and I'll have a follow up with him next month. And their coffee machine wasn't working in the front, and I was one of the last patients of the day for him. And he's like, do you want a coffee? So he goes into the back and he makes me a specialty espresso coffee, which was seriously probably still one of the best espressos I've ever had, and was like, set me down, did a couple scans and tests. And then he's like, have you been dealing with other symptoms? And I was like, maybe. And he's like, you've been Googling your symptoms, haven't you been? And I was like, maybe. So again, he confirmed optic neuritis. And then he said, Kate, he gave me a coffee, and he's like, go sit in the waiting room. I'm going to make a couple phone calls. So I was like, okay, this is odd. It was 5:00 at night at that time. And he's like, so anyways, I didn't know what he was doing. He got on the phone with one of the neurologists at Health Science Center, and he got me a emergency referral. So luck of the draw, I have never been into and gotten into a referral like this so fast. Like, I have dealt with so many different health issues, and I don't know, this is just a blessing for me, because I know this sounds really weird and crazy, but to get into these referrals so fast and not being on a waiting list for months, like, I will call it, it was God's timing. It had to happen, because obviously I have been dealing with all these things. It kind of all came into one moment, and I'm just so thankful. Although don't get me wrong, I hated sitting at Health Science Center. That place is a gong show on a good day. And So yeah, so I was at the clinic at the eye specialist. He's like, Kate, he's like, I pushed and pushed and he got me a referral. He's like, you're going to take this form. You're going to still have to go through emergency, but you're going to go and let them know. They're going to see this. They will not turn you away. I've made specific instructions that you are to get an MRI and a CT scan. And I was like, holy Dinah, like, okay, like, this is kind of scary. But again, in my mind, I had some ideas of what this could be. And then, so yeah, I headed over to HSC and, again, called the kids. Mom's not coming home. So of course they were worried, but you know, at least Joe was at home now with the kids, and Joe wanted to know if he could come stay with me. And I was like, you know what, just stay home with the kids. There's no point in two of us being gone. At least one parent's home hanging out and making sure the house is, you know, not falling to the ground because mom's not home. And so through the course of the evening, I sat in ER. I finally got in about, I want to say I got there at 6:30 because I stopped and had dinner because I knew I was going to be in the hospital for a while. I had an idea. So I stopped and got dinner and got a couple snacks. And then I got admitted, I would say about 10 or 11 o'clock. So I waited a number of hours. And then they took a bunch of blood tests. And I would say about 2 o'clock in the morning, I went for a CT infuse scan. So they put the dye into your blood. And then they were going to also, hook me up for the MRI, which again, then the dye's in your body so that they can do the scan accordingly. And then it brings up any activity going on in your body. And so I think 2 a.m. was the CT infused scan. And oh my goodness, like at that time, keeping in mind that I was having so many issues with my hands and my fingers. So I had a hard time. I would drop things all the time. So I had a hard time taking out my nose ring and my belly button ring. And the nurse actually had to help me take that out because with an MRI and a CT scan, you can't have any metal in your body for anything, like any jewelry. So she had to help me. And I was so worried about bending my only nose ring that I had. So anyways, so she helped me take it out. And oh my goodness, I was so exhausted. So long story short, I spent 25 hours in Health Science Center from start to finish. 8 o'clock in the morning, I had my MRI, and by 11:30, 12, throughout that morning, there was the neurologist came to see me, as well as some of her colleagues came to see me. I guess they were like interns practicing their internship with neurology. And they came and asked me a bunch of questions, sent me on a bunch of tests. Like I had to do like the drunk man's walk, like walk down a straight line, and they were trying to see my imbalance issues, and they did a whole bunch of tests with me. And again, at this time, so kept asking me after the MRI was done if I had had other issues or other symptoms that I was dealing with. And again, like I was like, well, I've had a series of a whole bunch of health issues. So, you know, to sum it up, like the neurology, there was 3 of them. The neurology team came and saw me, and they said, you know, you have 40 plus lesions in your brain. They took me to the computer and they showed me the MRI scan, and they showed me all the active lesions. So one of the lesions being behind my left eye. So there was a large 2 centimeter, 2 centimeter lesion behind my left eye, which was causing active lesion, which means, so with MS, it is, so whatever attacks the myelin sheath. So you have a protective layer called myelin sheath on your nerves, on your nervous system. And MS seems to be a deterioration or attack on this sheath. So if that sheath is damaged and exposed, it creates these lesions, kind of like scar tissue or kind of like a tumor, the way that cancer would build on that specific area. So if the myelin sheath is damaged, then it creates this scar tissue or these lesions in that specific area where the damage is done. And that's what it did behind my eye. So it was causing the pressure and inflammation on the optic nerve, and obviously putting pressure and inflammation on my eye, causing all this blurriness and these issues with my eye. So this has been kind of my journey since September. So I just wanted to talk about my symptoms, my diagnosis, the team did come to me at about 11 o'clock. I'm just going to plug my phone in because it's going to die. So again, this is a raw and real video, guys. I don't want to sit here and pretend to have all the lights and flashy cameras, you know, showing how great of a journey this has been. This has not been a great journey for me, because for somebody who's very active in my lifestyle, to be kind of kicked down on your butt, like the last 2 months, last two and a half months have not been easy since my diagnosis. People seem to think that I'm doing better because I'm doing more. It doesn't mean I'm better. So, you know, what I want to talk about today is just more or less my symptoms and what's led up to my diagnosis in November. So I was forced to rest. I run my own business. For many of you that know, I have my own livestock. We have our own animals. We are homeschooling my kids. So we have just been winging it these last couple months. I have taken it upon myself to take some time off from my business just to rest, because the biggest thing with, especially the optic neuritis, because that was the biggest scare that I had, was, oh my goodness, when you're hit on your butt and forced to be put on your butt, and rest, the optic neuritis was the biggest scare for me, because like when you lose your vision and you're unsure of if you're going to get 100% of it back or any of it back, that's really scary. So one thing I didn't add was, after my diagnosis, I again, the neurological team came to me and said, Kate, we have looked over your MRI scans. They showed everything to me, like I mentioned, and you have MS. This is what we're going to do another couple blood tests to make sure and rule out that you don't have any other neurological diseases. And again, those all came back negative. So it is indeed that I do have MS. Now, what does this change for me looking forward? Am I willing to take pharmaceuticals to help with this diagnosis? Not at this time. And I'm going to do another video explaining my reasons why. I did take a short stint of a 5-day, very high aggressive prednisone treatment, which the very first symptom of prednisone, if you look, is blurred vision and loss of vision. So that 5 days turned into 2 weeks of, like, I barely could see out of my left eye after taking the prednisone. So that prednisone made my symptoms 100% worse. Okay. So, and I'm not saying don't take this advice from me. Like, you do what you want with your journey and the medications that you want to take. But for me, something that really affected me negatively, and it took almost a month to get that prednisone out of my system. So that dose that I was taking daily was like, even the pharmacist was like, how much per day? So for those that want to know, it was about 260 mgs per day. So like, just think of like an aggressive form of chemo, and just like, bam, like it was how many pills a day? I think it was 25 pills a day. It was insane. Like, trying to like swallow those stupid things down with orange juice was the only way I can get them down. Because if any of you have taken prednisone, it's like, oh my Lord. Like, they can't even sugarcoat it like they do Tylenol. I don't know why they don't, because it tastes disgusting. And it leaves a terrible aftertaste. And anyways, so that was my short spurt of taking any sort of pharmaceuticals after my diagnosis, because, again, my eye was so bad that I was afraid of long-term damage, right? So again, I was desperate. I just wanted to try something and see if it would work. I took the suggestions of the neurologist. And from then until now, I haven't taken any other pharmaceuticals. So my journey from now forward is going to be focusing on natural healing, when it comes to vitamins and diet and exercise and all sorts of natural ways to heal our body and heal the inflammation that's happening in my body. So stay tuned for that. So again, this video was more along the lines of talking about my journey, what led up to my actual diagnosis, what symptoms I was dealing with, and what symptoms I'm still dealing with. To this day, a lot of cognitive issues I am still dealing with, a lot of, I wouldn't say disorientation, but again, just scrambled. My brain is scrambled all the time. Yes, I have a busy lifestyle, but I normally felt that I could, keep my life together a lot more previous to this. So the last 6 months, I've been really dealing with cognitive issues and memory loss issues. Nothing extreme, but something that's still affecting my everyday thing. So I'm noticing that it was a good idea that I took off a couple months of my business just to give my mind and my brain a rest from everything and just focus on healing me. So going forward, I'm really excited to jump back on board with, I am doing classes once a week, and I'm also starting a virtual program again. So I will be working out, and I have to work out because it's important for my body and for my mind to be strong and continue moving forward. So, stay tuned for, talking about this diagnosis and, what this means for me. So I am not done doing what I'm doing. I want to keep this conversation open, and I want to keep talking about this. So if you have MS, or if you know somebody who has MS, tell them to reach out to me, because I'm no expert at this, but I have been through, I would say the dark waters of this, and I want to talk about this and open up this dialogue, because the one thing I do want to mention before I check out from this is that there's no support besides my friends and family. I found out by talking to a nurse when I was at the hospital that they have cut funding to the MS clinic. So keeping in mind, when I was at HSC, the neurologist told me I would be referred to the MS clinic here in Manitoba at HSC, and it's been 3 months. And I was advised by a nurse that don't expect to get a phone call anytime soon in the next many months, because the government of Manitoba has cut all of the funding to the MS clinic. And there is 1 to 2 neurologists that are working in and among the MS clinic, and multiple nurses have been pulled from the clinic to be distributed somewhere else where there's shortages. So I am on my own when it comes to any sort of MS related help. So, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but as an MS patient and a person who's personally been diagnosed with MS, this is a real blow, because hey, you have MS. Hey, here's your MRI scans. Hey, this is what's going on with your body. Crickets. Nothing. So this is my frustration and why I want to continue this conversation and keep this conversation open. Because if all I can do is offer hope in my journey and offer optimism in what I'm doing and keeping people positive, people say, oh, I don't know how you do it. Well, I don't have a choice. I have a family to raise, and I have a body to keep healthy. And this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to keep opening up conversation and keep my spirit high so that I can hopefully inspire other people with MS to keep their hopes and their spirits high. All right, you guys, so checking out, I hope you have enjoyed and taken something from this video and my experience with MS so far. And please share and spread the word about my vlogs and about my journey. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.